they're hooked together.
Well, after years of planning and restoration, a Vietnam-era jet has finally arrived at its new home, the intersection of Highway 243 and Highway 19 in Canton. CBS 19's Courtney Friedman shows us how much the jet means to the community, especially its veterans.
There's a whole lot of people, and you're looking at them all around us, that not only support this Veterans Memorial, but also the United States of America. And it's a real pleasure. It's my privilege to be here today.
Field McConnell flew the fighter jet for 13 years.
This airplane was at the North Dakota Air National Guard in Fargo, North Dakota from 1977 to 1990, so it was in our unit.
The plane was built in 1964, delivered to the Air Force in 1966, and flew actively from 66 to 91.
This particular airplane always got me home, and I'm glad to be able to participate in this aircraft finally finding its final home.
Hello, Field.
Hello, Mike. Nice to be back.
Yes, you've come to Nottingham.
I have, and I've recently been in Telford and some other places, like Germany.
Germany, yes. Because it was a German aircraft. I had an accident recently.
I don't think it was an accident, but you're correct. It was a German aircraft, and it was German wings, 95-25, and the entire media quickly blamed it on Andreas Günther Lubitz, and he was not capable of doing what it is they said he did.
I mean, the media reaction to this was a disgrace, wasn't it? Because the official statement came out and they just jumped on it, and they jumped on him in the most callous way, I thought.
Well, I thought it was very disrespectful, but more important, that's subjective. More importantly, it's inaccurate, and that's objective, because I know that the precision and the speeds and the altitudes and the headings of that aircraft were things that could not have been done by a 27-year-old man with 600 hours.
Right. It's pretty shocking that somebody with 600 hours was left on his own in a cockpit.
I don't want to start an international war, but in the United States of America, a guy with 600 hours would not be flying a mainland airliner.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. So lots of stuff happened on the day, but what happened very quickly was that the cockpit voice recorder was discovered, but the flight data recorder was never discovered. So what was going on there, do you think?
Well, there's a lot of questions about what was going on there, because at one point we heard that a recorder was found, but it was damaged beyond control. Then a couple days later they said, oh no, it's not damaged beyond control. The data is good. I'm going to go back to the 5th of May of 2007 and say that when Kenya Airways Flight 507 crashed departing from Cameroon to Kenya, they got the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, and they sent them both to Montreal. If you think about Malaysia 17, they got the data recorders and they sent them to Holland.
Yeah.
It seems to me, and I'm just somebody that spent 40 years flying, but it seems to me whichever country the aircraft crashed in, or whoever owns the aircraft. In the case of Malaysia 17, I believe the recorders should have gone to Malaysia, or the Ukraine. That's where the airplane crashed.
Yeah.
But going to a third party, I don't understand it at all, especially if the third party is, I started to say ICAO, which is located in Montreal. Like any other device, and I see a camera right over there, and I see a recorder down here, both of these things can be manipulated with after the fact.
Yes.
We can change the tape completely. We can adjust the video or edit things out. And that's what happens when they take the recorders and they send them to a third party. They're opening the door to the, they would be spoilating evidence. They'd be removing evidence they don't want on the recorders, and they may be replacing it with evidence that would make it it would make it appear that Lubitz really was guilty of what he's accused of doing. I'm 100% sure he was incapable of flying that profile.
Yes. Now, the cockpit voice recorder was discovered, and very quickly there were various leaks which kind of forced the hand of the officials to make a statement about what was on that, and they were magically able to identify exactly what buttons he was pressing and allegedly and so on. And I find that quite an interesting concept, that from a cockpit voice recorder recording in a cockpit that was empty except for one person, that they were able to work out what buttons he was pressing.
Can I explain that as the devil's advocate?
Yes.
If the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot hadn't been triggered, then all the buttons that were being pushed would be pushed by whoever it was that was controlling the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot. And so, of course, they would know what buttons were pushed and in what order, because it would be a third party outside the aircraft doing the pushing. And for people that are not aware of the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot, they certainly should be, because there was a YouTube put out on the 8th of March of 2014. It was put out for the benefit of Malaysia. It was put out the same day that Malaysia 370 went down. Supposedly it didn't go down, but the media story is that it did. And the name of that YouTube, if anybody wants to watch it, and I did not make the YouTube, but the title of the YouTube is Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot. I've had hundreds of conversations where people say, if there's a Boeing uninterruptible autopilot out there and it's deployed, why haven't we heard about it? That's a fair question for every airline and every major media source, because the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot was acknowledged by Boeing itself on the 3rd of March of 2007 in London. And in addition to saying that, yes, indeed, we have an uninterruptible autopilot and it is deployed, they went one step further and they said within 3 years it will be deployed on every airliner in the world. 2007 plus 3 years is 2010.
Yeah.
So they, Boeing, the airlines, the FAA, which I think that if I had the luxury of being able to point the finger at any entity, I'd point it at the FAA in the United States of America. The administrator's name is Michael Huerta. I've communicated with him one-on-one directly since March of 2010. Everything I know, he knows, and yet these autopilots are still killing people. The other entity that I would say is even more complicit than the FAA is the Airline Pilots Association of the United States of America. It's a union.
Yeah.
And the reason I say they're more complicit is they've known about this since December 10th of 2006. They've also committed a fraud upon the court, my allegation, in a case called Civil Case 1:08-1600, which they caused Judge Rosemary M. Collier to dismiss. And in my estimation, that was a fraud upon the court, and the guilty parties would be the Airline Pilots Association, who claim that safety is their priority. And while safety has been their priority, we've now lost 13 airliners bearing the signature of the Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot FADEC, which FADEC, Full Authority Digital Engine Controller, and ATI. ATI is Air Tranquilizer Injector, and that's where if this room were the cabin of an airliner and people started getting nervous in this room, a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas could be introduced into this room through the cabin pressure system, and it would make us all relaxed. Or if they gave us a bigger dose, it would make us all asleep. And if they cranked up the dose even further, it may make all of us dead.
Of course, some people have been talking about the uninterruptible autopilot since before 2006, because wasn't it ex-German Minister von Bülow that was talking in 2002 about this?
I'm not sure about the 2002, but I know the minister, von Bülow, he was talking about it, and the reason he was talking about it is because he knew that Lufthansa, the German national airline, had a number of Boeing 747-400 aircraft delivered with the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot installed. And from my experience, Lufthansa and their mechanics, which they don't call them mechanics, they call them techniques.
Yeah.
But they're some of the best in the world, if not the best in the world. I would just say if you compare German cars to other cars,
Yeah.
you can assume that German engineering and German mechanics on aircraft are top notch also. They found the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot. Lufthansa objected strenuously.
Yeah.
Lufthansa paid $800 million to rip the Boeing part out, and then they had the Luftwaffe design a flight director to replace it. The reason Germany went to this expense is they did not want the United States of America to be controlling German airplanes, and I think they're absolutely right.
So it's a bit ironic, perhaps, that now Germany, the German government, is calling for this to be put on all aircraft, and in fact, Germany is going to end up with it if they don't already have it. And of course, you're suggesting that they do.
Well, they apparently had it on that Airbus,
Yeah.
and that Airbus was a Lufthansa Airbus when it got so many cycles. And for people who don't speak airline talk, a cycle is simply a takeoff, a pressurization, a descent, and depressurization, and landing.
Yeah.
And what happens, it's like if we had a balloon right here at sea level or wherever we are, and the balloon was full to 40 psi, and then we ascended, the size of the balloon would get much bigger because the internal pressure still be 40,
Yeah.
but the external pressure descends on a scale. As altitude climbs, the pressure lessens and the balloon gets bigger until
Yeah.
it goes pop.
Yeah.
This aircraft that crashed on the 24th of March of 2015 had a fair amount of cycles, but at the time it was transferred, plus or minus weeks or months, but roughly at the time it was transferred from Lufthansa to the regional carrier German Wings, it had its useful life extended administratively by doing a bunch of mechanical inspections.
Yeah.
But I'll stand by my original statement. I think Lufthansa's maintenance is one of the best in the world.
Yeah. Yes. So anyway, this aircraft crashed, and what do you think is the reason? Why did they? What happened here?
I think.
Is this a reinsurance job?
Oh, certainly. In fact, that's a very good question, because do you know the name of the insurance company that had the insurance on this aircraft?
No.
Alliance, ALL.
Yeah.
You've heard it?
Oh yeah.
If you check all the airplanes that have gone down in this batch of 13, and the batch of 13, you can Google it because I've written about it on the internet, and I refer to it as the Baker's Dozen,
Right.
because Baker's Dozen means 13 in some cultures. In the first one in the Baker's Dozen was Adam Air 574 in Indonesia on the 1st of January of 2007. The last one, I'd like to think it's the last one, but so far the last one is German Wings. And in there we've had 13 aircraft taken down with the signature of the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot, with two exceptions. Speedbird 38 at Heathrow in January of 2008. That was taken down with FADEC, in my somewhat expert opinion. And I have to credit the British Airways crew. The co-pilot, or the first officers flying the airplane, they were on short final landing at Heathrow, and both engines, in pilot talk, they say rolled back. What they mean is both engines failed.
And they were trying to say that was due to engine icing.
Well, that's really nice, because cold air is up high and warm air is down low. And if there had been ice up high, it should have melted by the time they're down low.
Yeah.
So, yeah, engine icing could make the engine shut down.
Yeah.
To shut down simultaneously, maybe not, because usually it's really an inexact science. If there's ice crystals in the fuel, the fact that there would be the same concentration of ice crystals in two engines that are 30 feet apart,
Yeah.
I think it's unlikely. But if there's a guy pushing a button to kill FADEC in both engines, then they're going to fail simultaneously.
Yeah.
Conjecture really doesn't help at this point. What we know is that both engines failed on final. The co-pilot was doing such a fine job of flying and managing energy. Most people that haven't flown airplanes don't realize that what pilots really are is geometry experts and energy managers.
Yeah.
But the co-pilot was sitting there, he felt the airplane slowing.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really good that the captain didn't take the airplane, because the FO had the feel of the airplane.
Yeah.
And he could manage it. And he managed it to a safe enough
Conclusion.
collision with the ground
Yeah.
that nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
And the airplane was trashed, but there was not one fatality. And an airline pilot's first job is safety, even though you just heard me criticize the Airline Pilots Association, because they know everything I know.
Yeah.
I've told them everything.
Yeah.
and yet they sit there and they do nothing.
Yes. And of course, the other case that you mentioned is MH370/17. And I put those together because it seems to me that those were not two separate incidents.
I don't think they were, and it's rather grim, and I don't even like to talk about this, but if somebody doesn't talk about it, it'll never get fixed. The 239 people aboard Malaysia 370 were very likely dead when the aircraft landed at FJDG, that's military and ICAO talk, for Diego Garcia.
Yeah.
And when the aircraft landed at Diego Garcia, at 6:51 in the morning of March 8th of 2014, the 239 humans aboard the aircraft, it's my feeling they were dead due to the ATI.
Yeah.
And if I'm right or I'm wrong, it really doesn't matter, because when Malaysia 17 went down, there were two populations of bodies. There was a population of around 230 plus decomposing bodies, and there was a population of about 40 bodies, and this is really eerie and evil, but the other 40 bodies were fresh killed bodies with no blood. And the condition of the bodies, the media has us believe that this airplane was struck by something at around 31 to 33,000 feet.
Yeah.
If the bodies had started coming out at 31 to 33,000 feet, they would have been, at least the first couple of layers, would have been flash frozen.
Yes.
So when you hit the ground, it's like ice.
Yes.
But that's not the condition of the bodies. The bodies were intact to a large degree. And the first responders, including a Russian woman named Anna, A-N-N-A, she had a camera, and she was taking photographs and video of decomposing bodies. Mike, I'm not a scientist, but if the bodies fall from 30,000 feet to the ground, they're going to look just like this. They're not going to decompose.
Indeed. And those bodies, of course, taken off to the Netherlands. And in fact, interestingly enough, the BBC 2 nights ago on the radio, it was Radio 4, were talking about this, and the family's absolutely destroyed by the fact that they still haven't received their loved ones back, and they're still looking for remains at the scene. And what they were saying was that what they're trying to tell the families is that there's nothing left of their loved ones, that they're finding little pieces of bone or little pieces of this or that, but they're not finding intact bodies. So you got to wonder what's going on there. They're obviously worried about what they might be handing back.
They should be worried, because Malaysia 17, once again, bears the signature of a BUAP. I'm not satisfied that there were human pilots in that aircraft. And of course, who am I? Well, I'm nobody. Just like you're nobody and the others in this room. We're really nobodies in the view of the people that are killing people indiscriminately and airliners time after time. Of the 13 airliners that I've written about, there are 1,600 plus innocent deaths. And at the very least, the crime should be wrongful death in every one of these cases. You can't prove murder, although murder is the charge, because it's premeditated murder, with the exception of Malaysia 17, because those people were all dead when it took off from Amsterdam.
If it took off from Amsterdam. Did it take off from Amsterdam?
That's
Something
what's
took
reported.
off from Amsterdam.
It could have, but how do you know?
Yeah.
A drone, and people think that it's unlikely that an airliner could be droned. I don't think there's very many people in the world that are not familiar with military drones. And a military drone can take off in any weather condition and fly, according to their endurance, they can fly.
Well, they're refueling them in midair.
Well, they're
now.
doing that now, and they're
Yeah.
launching them from aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
I just want to get personal here in a way that would hopefully stimulate, not cause people to think I'm arrogant. But one of the airplanes I flew was the F-4 Phantom.
Yeah.
They made 5,200 F-4 Phantoms. 40 of those 5,200 flew with the North Dakota Air National Guard. One of those 40 is on a pole in Canton, Texas.
Yeah.
The registration number is 640965. I flew that airplane a lot, but one aircraft out of 5,200, that one aircraft was a drone, When it was a drone, it was owned by BAE, British Aerospace,
Yes.
and their subcorporation Tracor. I don't well, there's a lot of things I don't understand about the relationship between the UK and the US.
Right.
But what's the UK doing operating US aircraft in US airspace from Mojave, California, doing drone-to-drone refuelings? So the tanker aircraft has no humans. 640965 had no humans. But once again, people at Tracor, BAE, the United States Air Force, Mojave, they don't think there's people out there that can put 2 and 2 together and come up with 4. But there are.
Let's change the subject field.
Okay.
You're in Britain this week, in Nottingham today, 1st of May.
Yep.
What has brought you here?
I'm trying to figure out what's going on with your constitution and your. When people are evicted from their homes in the UK, to me it looks like almost like the Nazis. The police officials are very disrespectful, I think, to the public. And one of the things, I'm sure they say we're just doing our job. I'm sure they're saying, well, the judge ordered it. But what those types of people, not only in Britain today, but in Germany in the 30s and in the United States to a lesser degree today, what those law enforcement people need to consider is that, they could be next. What's really going on, the core issue, and this is just my opinion, and I haven't shared it with anyone in this room, but I think what really is going on is all the contracts are being broken sequentially.
Yeah.
They'll break the common people first, and then when they got all the common people beat up, the cabal, that's my choice of words, but the cabal is running out of money, and they're running out of time. Now over here, they're evicting people from the houses, and I've been told by people in your country that the game there is they get rid of the deadbeats, and then the bank owns the home, and they rent it out.
That's one thing that's going on, yeah.
What's another thing?
Another thing that's going on is that properties are being stolen and then sold to developers for almost no money. So an extreme case, but it is a genuine case, a £500,000 home being sold to a developer for £80,000. And of course the developer then develops that property and sells it and then splits the profit with the people that stole the home in the first place. But this is theft of property at the moment. And in the case of Tom Crawford, who we're here to support today, of course they changed the terms of his mortgage without telling him. And then his mortgage completes and he finishes his final payment, and then they tell him, by the way, you still owe us £43,000. And this sort of thing is going on all the time. Mm-hmm. And most people don't know what to do about it. They think that the process is going on in court is a genuine process. They think that there's no corruption. And so when the bailiffs turn up with, well, they actually turn up with no paperwork these days. Mm-hmm. They just come along and say, we're bailiffs, we're here to take your house. And people hand over the keys because they don't know that the process that they've been through has been corrupt from the start. And so that's really what today is about. But you're absolutely right. The legal system in this country is being destroyed.
You said country. Is it a country or is it a corporation?
I think it's still both.
Okay.
I think it's not too late to go back, but we are in the process of...
That's why we're here, isn't it?
What they are doing is building parallel infrastructures.
Yep.
So the old way is still there. The common law country still exists, but the corporation is sitting on top of it at the moment or beside it. And what's being presented in the media is the corporate side, and the old side is being pushed away by the elites. Mm-hmm. And the only people that are standing up for this are the common people, us really. But the corporate side, every aspect of our lives is being corporatized in the most callous way, actually.
Well, I'm from the United States, so anybody in the U.S. that hears this, don't think that this problem is in Britain alone. It's in the United States. And we are also a corporation in the United States. Yeah. And if anybody does not understand that, they need to get into a search engine and search Corporation of the United States of America plus 1871. I'm not sure. I think it was February. So let's just assume it was February of 1871. We went from being a free republic to being a corporation. And one of the reasons I'm here today is I can commiserate with the abuses being heaped upon the citizens, because in May of 2003, maybe I can't be specific. I think I can be close. Somewhere around the 20th of May of 2003, I was involved in a illegal house. Well, I had a house taken from me,
Right.
and a farm, and I don't want to get it. My case is just like Tom's. It's
Right.
just one case of many thousands. But I went through a process, and I had the pleasure of sitting in a courtroom, and I'm looking right at the camera, just like I was looking right at the judge. And when I made eye contact with this judge, or camera in this case, I saw two things in his eyes. One of them I'd never seen before. I had never seen evil incarnate.
Yeah.
And if you've never seen it, you wonder, well, how can you recognize it?
Yeah.
It was obvious.
Yeah, yeah.
So I saw evil and I saw fear, and that really confused me. I almost smiled or smirked because that's just my nature. When something confuses me, I sort of smile like I can't figure this out. I figured him out pretty quickly. He knew that he was engaged in something illegal, and he must have thought that at some point I was going to figure it out and come after him. And of course, I've never come after Judge Dennis D. O'Connell, but I'm not out of life yet. I'm fairly young for only 65. And at some point, the tables are turned. And what's going on in the United States right now is the people, let me be really specific. Have you heard the name Barry Soetoro?
I have heard that name. I think he's an imposter or something, isn't he?
Well, he's had three names that I know of, but my sister, Christine Marcy, in 1994, gave him his U.S. passport that says Barack Obama on it. And he went to my high school, and when he was at my high school, he was registered three ways: Barry Soetoro, Indonesian, Muslim. When I was at the same high school, Punahou School in Honolulu, Hawaii, I was registered as Field McConnell, United States, Christian. And I want to be real specific. The Christian part did not apply. But because my parents went to a Protestant church, they put Christian. Well, I graduated in 67, and I'm still the same person.
Yeah.
He graduated in 79, and he's gone from Barry Soetoro, Indonesian Muslim, to Barack Obama, President of the U.S. And Barack Obama and my own sister, Christine Marcy, know they're running out of time. And we have this ongoing, well, it's not ongoing yet. There's a planned exercise, which is basically martial law imposition and the extraction of domestic terrorists. And that's set to go the 15th of July until the 15th of September. In news 2 days ago, the governor of Texas told the federal government, don't come to Texas with that program because we will take our assets and use against yours. And also, sometimes if you want to shut down something terribly evil, all you have to do is expose individual people.
Yeah.
And last week I exposed a guy named Thomas Mead. He's in charge of planning of Jade Helm, and he and a guy named Oquento and a third name. I published their names, I published their address, I published their phone numbers, and suddenly yesterday, Jade Helm has been canceled or terminated in a variety of locations. One of the locations might be within stone's throw of 7500 Mayer, Maehr Drive in Waco, Texas. And if you think you might have heard of Waco, it's where the Branch Davidian compound was, and it's where the largest concentration of Masons are in the state of Texas.
Right.
And so we think that little people, there's 5 little people in this room right now. It's our feeling with the group that I work with that little people can beat the big people when we're right and we outnumber them and we work together and we don't cower. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here today with you guys in Nottingham. And it's one of the reasons why less than a month ago I was over in Germany standing up for the young Mr. Lubitz, who was vilified by the world media, and they were 100% wrong.
100% wrong. Totally agree. Okay, Phil, thank you very much. How do people contact you or find you on the internet if they want to find you after this weekend?
Well, the easiest way to find me is via email at either fieldmcc@yahoo.com or my last name, McConnell, McConnell, Field, Field, @gmail.com. We have a website, abeldanger.net, and Abel is ABEL,
Yeah.
Danger is DANGER.net. Also, anybody in the world that wants to talk about these issues can dial +001 715 307 8222.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.